Thoroughgood's Heritage Mock Toe is out. Dana's Bull Run is out. Astaflex is out. Blundstones are 10 bucks too much. They just missed it. Which good boots are still under 200 bucks in 2024. A lot fewer than there used to be, thanks to a lot of inflation. But this year's video, and it looks like I need to keep doing these videos every year to keep up with price changes. But for this video, I've managed to put together a longer list than I have in previous years for the best boots under 200 bucks. But how did I decide? What is a best boot or a good boot? Well, on this channel, we talk about casual stuff that lasts a long time. I'm Nick, by the way. And in the spirit of longevity, durability, I emphasize boots that are able to be resold. However, at this price point, there are not a lot of them. So this video is going to start with resoleable boots. That's the best value, I think. Then sort of resoleable boots, and then not resoleable boots that are still pretty good, all things considered. So let's just start the video, but links to all these are in the description below. There's also an article which has even more entries, at least one more entry because I accidentally made this video too long. All right, so the resoleable category, Thursday Boot Company is the no-brainer for number one. This is made like boots that cost like quite a lot more than the 199 bucks that they charge for this. It's got a vegetable tan leather midsole and a vegetable tan leather welt and cork filling under the insole. That insole is a shock-absorbing poron, which helps reduce break-in and improve the comfort. It's not leather, which some people prefer, but it's a very nice, sleek cap-toe boot that is so popular. It comes in 24 other colors right now, so there really is something for everyone, even the wide-footed, who get 8 colors, which is still a lot. So really solid boot. The next is also a really easy pick for guys who are into really old-fashioned shoemaking. Blackbird is your best bet. This is an Indian brand, and not only are the boots resoleable, they're hand-welted, which is how we made resoleable boots before the 1860s. So it's like the most laborious, skillfully made boot on this list, with a lot of premium leathers like Horween's Chrome XL for under 300 bucks. But they've also got a lot of models made with leather from, I asked them, Belarus, Egypt, or Ukraine, and like the Rudiger and the Dixon boots. And those ones, depending on the exchange rate, are under 200 bucks. So I've been watching the exchange rate. It hasn't gone over 200 bucks yet since I've been talking with this brand for a couple of years. And this Chelsea right now is 155 bucks. It's really wild. This video is sponsored by my favorite wristwatch brand, Vaer. If you follow my Instagram, you know I've been wearing these for ages, and this is actually the first sponsorship I've said yes to in literal years. This is a really easy one to say yes to. This brand is described by one journalist as the watch equivalent of Japanese raw denim, and they're just the best balance of design, function, and value that I've seen in a watch brand. My current favorite is this C5 Solar Quartz I just took to Canada. I'm loving Solar Quartz watches right now because they're really accurate, they're low maintenance. It's just cool that you can get 6 months of battery life from 6 hours of sunlight, and they're inexpensive. This is 259 bucks and assembled here in the US. But if you prefer automatic watches, they've got a huge range of them that emphasize like durable, outdoorsy, and simple designs like field watches, dive watches, and GMT watches that help you track time in 2 time zones. I also love if you've got a couple of watches from them, it's really easy to change out straps for different looks. They give you 2 straps with every watch, and I've got to end this segment. It's going on too long, but check it out. I got a discount code for 10% off on screen. It might change if it spreads too much. I'll update the pinned comment if it changes, but right now, you can get 10% off these very good value watches right now. Link is in the description below. Jim Green is a dope company out of South Africa that are very much under 200 bucks. Their flagship African Ranger is 179 to 189 bucks. There are a lot of cool things about them. Number one, they are quite outdoorsy. Like they're made for guys who actually are African Rangers, like the guys who are protecting animals from poachers and maintaining parks and so on. Number 2, the other good thing about Jim Green, for every 10 boots they sell, they give a pair to an African Ranger, which I really like. And then number 3, there's a pretty wide variety of African Ranger boots you can get. There's like a bunch of leathers, there's even a barefoot zero drop version, if that's your thing. And there's even a natural vegetable tanned leather one that's under 200 bucks right now. And if you want an even hikier boot, they've got the Razorback, which is a pretty proper looking hiking boot and also under 200 bucks. Jim Green's made with stitch down construction, and while stitch down boots at this price point usually can't be resold, these ones actually can. Like here's the resoling operation at Jim Green's headquarters, and they told me that plenty of regular cobblers in the US can also resole these boots. Very rare for stitch down at this price point. And we're now in the sort of resoleable section of the video. A very famous and beloved one that is great value regardless of resolability is Golden Fox's Boondocker. This is modeled after World War II service boots. That does not mean it's the same as those old boots, but it's inspired by them. We have reviewed Golden Fox's Boondockers. The leather is pretty decent, the comfort is high, the sole is a really nice soft crepe, and they are Goodyear welted. Except the welt is plastic, which means it's very hard to resole. And if you can resole it, you're not going to get more than one resole out of it. But yeah, that said, they're still very inexpensive. They can be resold probably once, and also a cobbler can replace that welt if you want to. And at 139 bucks, They cost as much as like an extra nice pair of sneakers, and they are still better made. So it's a very good entry. Another sort of resoleable boot is the world famous LL Bean boot, just called the Bean boot. These boots are still made in America and still 149 bucks and often on sale. You should check out this video where we looked at several pairs that were decades old. One was 30 years old, and they are very waterproof, and your cobbler cannot resole them. But LL Bean can resole them if you send them your boot. So they're sort of resoleable, but as evidenced by this video, man, it obviously depends on how you wear them, but even though the sole is pretty thin, like you can feel the ground underneath you when you're walking around in Bean boots, it really doesn't wear down very much, and you probably won't ever need to think about resoling them anyway, because this decades old pair doesn't need to be resoled yet. We're on the last sort of resoleable boot, probably the world's most famous chucker boot. That is Clark's Desert Boot, or the CDB. It's so popular that it got that acronym on the subreddit Male Fashion Advice, because when guys are just getting into dressing well, they're always told, get CBD and OCBD. That's an Oxford cloth button down. And that and some chinos, like that's a solid outfit for most officers. And CDBs work well casually as well. While they are essentially made with stitched down construction, cobblers Trenton and Heath tell me that the upper kind of falls apart when you try to resole Clark's Desert boots. So like they're really not resoleable, but they do have that more sophisticated construction of stitched down if that appeals to you. Like it's still a more complicated and skillfully made boot than like just like cemented sneakers, you know? Plus they're 150 bucks and they come in at least a half dozen leathers. And the leather is from CF Stead, which is a tannery in England that's really famous for the quality of their suede. It's obviously not their most expensive suede, but still it's really nice that it is British suede. And I visited that tannery once. You should watch that. It's up there and in the description. All right, we are onto this section of boots that cannot be resoled but are still pretty good. Like another waterproof boot. Like waterproof boots typically can't be resoled, but a really good one is All Weather's Duck Boot. They are at huckberry.com. This is a very rare example of a waterproof boot that isn't hideous. Normally, a waterproof boot is either really chunky because they've had to put like a waterproof membrane underneath the leather, or a waterproof boot is like, you know, they look like the Bean boot or something, which I personally think it's a very rural looking boot. They're just like a bit funny when I see them being worn around here in Manhattan. The All Weather Duck Boot though, I think it's like a really versatile and cool looking waterproof boot for a waterproof boot. Plus it's got a Vibram outsole, which is like really big. It's a really highly respected name brand for this price point especially. And the shock absorption is really great too, actually, like miles better than the Bean boots. And while we're talking outdoorsy, gin green are pretty good, but if you want a more dedicated hiking boot that is zero drop and waterproof, Lems Waterproof Boulder Boot has a proper leather upper, and they managed to make it waterproof with a very, very thin membrane that keeps the weight of the boot under 13 ounces. It's 370-ish grams. And Lems is like a really good example of a brand making the most of cemented construction in that like it's waterproof and they really try to make it as lightweight as possible, like to sort of maximize the benefits of a cemented boot, like kind of getting everything you can out of that type of construction. Another waterproof one, I should have just made a best waterproof boots on the 200 bucks list, shouldn't I? But like my most worn boot in this section of not resolable boots on this list, my most worn one is Ariat's, their waterproof Chelsea. They're the Wexford Chelsea boot is called. It is, again, rare for a waterproof boot to not be really bulky, and the Wexford is Ariat's most popular non-cowboy boot, and it might even be the most popular boot overall, and the bitch is waterproof. I've stood in puddles in these a million times, just daring the water to seep in, and it never does. It's a really surprisingly good-looking boot. It's like a little bit Western, but it's not too Western, and it is 199 bucks. Pretty impressive boot. And one more waterproof one is, I don't know if this or the Bean boot is more iconic, but Timberland's premium waterproof boot, just forget about it. It's one of the most iconic boots of all time, and it's still under 200 bucks. It's totally waterproof, and it has the added bonus on this list for also being insulated. It's got 400 grams of Primaloft insulation, which is 90% recycled as well, which is nice, and which hip-hop historian George Nelson noted in Hip Hop America was great for keeping crack dealers' feet warm on city corners when dealing drugs all night. You don't have to be a crack dealer to wear these though. Will I get demonetized for talking about crack? Maybe. I might. But anyway, the Timberland Premium Waterproof Boot, it actually started out as like a farming boot in New England, made its way to the cities, and it can be worn just about anywhere now. And it also comes in a ton of different colors as well. It's most famous for this wheat nubuck version, of course, but there's a bunch of colors that can fit maybe almost any style. Although it's a fairly voluminous boot, but still pretty good value, honestly, for the price point. The very last one on this list, not waterproof, but a runner-up for best Chelsea is New Republic Sonoma, because it's under 100 bucks. It's definitely the cheapest Chelsea. It's famous for their super soft and comfy crepe sole. They cost as much as a pair of sneakers and they will last longer than your Chuck Taylors. That I can assure you. The Sonoma Chelsea is pretty well regarded for a boot under 100 bucks. Just note that it's not super stable because it's a crepe sole and there's no shank in there. And of course it can't be resoled. But again, for a boot under 100 bucks, you're getting, it's good value. It is good value even though the sole wears down more quickly than like hard rubber. And that's it for this video. Oh, and also Bruno Marc sells these motorcycle boots for like 40 bucks. Like they're always under 50 bucks whenever I see them on Amazon. The leather is vegan, God knows how long they'll last. But if you are here just trying to find the cheapest boots on earth that look almost like actual boots, yeah, try out these boots. Let me know how it goes. Otherwise, that's my list of the best boots under 200 bucks. This is my favorite video of the videos I've done on this because I've done like a good sweep of the different areas of boots here. I didn't just stick to the resolable ones. And any boot you could be after, I think you might have found it on this list. Let me know which one you prefer, which ones you own in the comments below. And otherwise, subscribe here for more videos on casual stuff that lasts a long time, and I'll catch you for the next one.